my talk, not a talk today, a question and answer session, is I'm taking questions from you. Online, you can type your questions in the chat. Right now on Zoom, they are putting you can type it right into the chat. Online on Facebook or our website or on YouTube, you can put it in the chat section of that also, and someone will translate the question to me here. But to be clear, I'm taking spiritual questions, theological questions. I am not taking, not that that I won't tell you, but I'm not taking personal questions. And yes, I did go on my vacation with my 2 kids and my husband. He was there too, and I couldn't have gone with the 2 kids without him. I don't know how single parents do it. Any of you who are single parents, I bow into admiration for what you do. So I'm not taking personal questions, and I'm not taking questions about church business. I certainly will take questions about church business, but not here in this forum. This forum is for spiritual questions. And I promise to respond, not necessarily to answer. Okay? So if we're really clear on that, you will hear words come out of my mouth to every question you ask. And hopefully I will have a meaningful answer for you. All right? So it gives you a moment. Yes, there's a microphone set up here at the end of this aisle. So if you have a question, I invite you to come forward and use the microphone and introduce yourself to the community too.
Hello, I'm Reverend Elizabeth. I have a fun geography question for you, Ken.
A geography question, okay.
Spiritual geography question.
Okay, spiritual geography.
Yes.
There are no boundaries.
There are no boundaries.
There's the answer.
But I thought it might be. Fun to explore this. When we meditate, we drop down, perhaps, into our center. But there's also this universal desire to lift up, to rise up, to grab something higher. Yeah. So I thought maybe you could talk about what is higher, what is lower, what is center, what is inner, what is outer, in our spiritual context.
Spiritual geography, I see. Absolutely, cool. So, as Elizabeth talks about here too, always is this idea that the guru goes to the mountaintop. And in scripture, it talks about Jesus went to the mountaintop, or Moses went to the mountaintop to get the higher level of spiritual wisdom. Well, we know that a lot of times the spiritual wisdom comes to us at our lowest point in life, right? Right? And in the trenches, sometimes that's where we need the spiritual wisdom the most. So I call it, Elizabeth, the divine paradox. We seem to be rising higher in consciousness, but what really is we're getting deeper in understanding. Right? So the two things happen at the same time. We lift our consciousness over the noise and the rubble of the everyday struggle. And what that does is make us more present for the actual attention to the things of this world. So we see it as rubble, we see it as interference, we see it as a challenge. But when we can change our consciousness and using the aphorism of a higher consciousness, but it actually could be also a deeper consciousness, then the struggle becomes an opportunity to engage. So the struggle may be with a person, someone you're having conflict with or you wish was different, right? And when you can realize that the conflict is only that you want that person to be something then they're not, you realize that the whole issue actually lies within you, not them at all, right? And so that's a really hard spiritual thing to understand because we always project, I do anyway, always project outside someone else who's going, oh, that's just in my way, or they're not cooperating, or they're not doing what would make this situation better. And so I make the obstacle with my own thinking. And when I can create a greater way of thinking, a higher way, deeper way, a more holistic way maybe is how we put it. There is no boundary, there's no up, there's no low. It's just all oneness, that, oh, the thing I resist the most is the key to my spiritual fulfillment. I'll say that again. The thing you resist the most is the key to your spiritual fulfillment. Right? So what is it that you're resisting? What is it you're resisting doing, being, becoming? Because when you surrender to it, when you fully give in and say, this is what I'm here to do, this is how I'm supposed to interact with the world, how I'm supposed to be, then you have the opportunity to shine, to glow. There's an old story. Everyone ever heard the story of Jonah and the whale? Right? So Jonah, yes, even Rosie's heard the story of Jonah and the whale, right? So the story of Jonah and the whale in the Hebrew scriptures is that Jonah was sitting in meditation and he heard a call from God that he was supposed to go and minister to the enemies of the Israelites. He was supposed to go minister to the enemy. And he said, sure, God, I'll do that, and proceeded to go the other direction and ran away. I've done that. Sure, I'm going to do that, and walk right out the other door, right? And so Jonah ran away, and he got on a ship to get the hell out of Dodge. And when he was out at sea, the storms came, and the ship was being tossed and turned, and the sailors, Jonah was asleep down in the billows, and the sailors go, someone on this boat has angered God. Which one of you is it? And so Jonah finally wakes up in the middle of this raging storm and he says, yeah, that would be me. I'm running away from God. So and he said, you have to throw me overboard. Save yourselves by throwing me overboard. And so the sailors throw Jonah overboard, and he was swallowed by a whale. And that's how he ends up in the belly. And actually, in the scriptures, it's called a large fish. Not a whale, it's a large fish. So he's in the belly of the large fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Sound familiar, folks? Right? So he's in the belly of the whale for 3 days, and then the whale spits him up on the shore of the land he's supposed to minister to. Right? And so what we resist persists. Jonah goes on to become enlightened in that moment and starts to do the work of his ministry. So there is no geography, there's no running away, because that large fish is always going to swallow you and spit you up right where you're supposed to be. So the spiritual lesson in me also is to really bloom where I'm planted, right? My husband and I moved here to San Francisco for a job that he got. And boy, has it been the best thing that ever happened to me. Because San Francisco and you have given me a place to grow, to learn, and to shine. And that seeming, I don't know what this is going to be, a new place, a new town, new everything, has allowed me to reinvent my whole life and get to be the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my life. So, yeah. No boundaries. No boundaries. Thank you, Elizabeth.
That was amazing, Kent. 2, 3, 4. Move with spirit. Move with spirit. Move with spirit. Move with spirit.
So when you load the dishwasher, how is it possible? For those who haven't met me, I'm the spouse that moved him out of New York City to San Francisco.
Yes, husband of mine.
You have recently shared with me the distinction of trans-denominational, and I'm still wrestling with that term, but I think it'd be useful for other people to hear you talk about when you describe unity in that way, instead of multi-denominational or non-denominational, like what that distinction means and how we can begin to step into that better.
So Thank
did
you.
not set me up for this.
I actually did not. We actually were having this discussion. Paul Hasselbeck is still staying with us, and so we had dinner the other night, and we were talking about this. So for those of you who don't know, we are constantly, everyone who's gone to ministerial school, all of us here who have served in many capacities here, are always seeking the elevator pitch, the 30-second explanation of what unity is. I have yet to find anyone who can describe it adequately. And it used to be called, when unity was founded in the 1880s, its full, real, legal name was Unity School of Practical Christianity. And it was founded to interpret, metaphysically and spiritually, interpret traditional Christianity so that we could apply it in the 1880s version of scientific methodology, that mind control that came out of Christian Science, religious science, all of those denominations that was like, as you think, so you create. So we have evolved, and the great thing about unity is we're constantly looking at all kinds of new innovations in science and everything, how to describe who we are. I personally came from a Christian background and think there's great value in some of the Christian and Judeo-Christian teachings, but we also take spiritual practices from a wide range of different practices, religions, systems, from everything from Native Americanism to paganism to Hinduism to Buddhism, of course, right? Muslim. I don't know many Muslim teachings, to be quite honest. So that's why to say that we're interfaith doesn't fit well for me either, because we don't teach all those religions. We just take what we like from all of them, right? Right? That's a good one. We just take what we like, take what fits. But there is a spiritual wisdom in all faiths. And when I first started here on the windows in our old space, it had a sign on it that says, all paths lead to God. All paths lead to God. And that's so great. We don't celebrate and do the rituals of every faith tradition in the world here, so we're not interfaith in that way. And someone recently shared it to me to call themselves, rather than, and non-denominational in the Christian lexicon means that they're not affiliated with a mainline denomination, right? So they're not Methodist, they're not Protestant, right? They're not Anglican, they're not Catholic. So that means non-denominational. And we're not that either, because that's not our primary focus. But someone suggested we're trans-denominational, meaning that we see the value in and we experience all of it, but we cross those different denominations and those different teachings. And I liked that expression. So that's why JD brought it up. He's like, oh, we're trans-denominational. And I also just like the idea that some people who get upset with trans people, we would aggravate them. Because you know that in my office, which is right through that door, I have a pillow that my husband gave me too, because my job, I was taught, was to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. So if there are people out there that saying afflicts, good, right? Good. We want to be able to make sure we question everything. We question what we think we know. We question what we think is right and wrong. We question what we think other people should do, and we question what we think God is, because anything we think God is too limited. Because our human thoughts cannot possibly contain and comprehend the vastness, the power, the enormity of spirit, of the divine spirit I speak of and I know, that isn't gendered, isn't limited by physical body, isn't limited by time and space, isn't limited by any earthly complaint. God is love, and love has no boundaries when we're not thinking of it in our human capacity. So when we can be trans-denominational, it means we're bigger than anything any religious organization can possibly contain. What we want to be is part of the whole system of spirituality, of the globe, of the universe. We want to be bigger than we can ever imagine. And that's why I come to a service every Sunday. That's why I keep studying and practicing. That's why I want to grow, because I know that I'm not yet begun. I have not yet begun to understand the wholeness of what is possible. The love, the peace, the joy, the wisdom. I just scratched the surface, folks. And that's what we're here for. That's why you're all here and online, because you have that same longing. You have that same question and that same desire. What's this all about? What's this life about? It is bigger than us. It's trans-denominational, it's trans-spirituality, it's trans-structural. It is bigger than we can imagine. And we take little moments like this not to know God, but have an experience of the divine that we all bring to God. The divine we bring to the celebration of life. And that's trans-denominational. That makes sense? Yeah. Can somebody bring a mic to Francine?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So recently, just a minute ago, you all talked about our light.
Yes.
I would like to know how I can appreciate my light if I can't see it.
Uh-huh. So, can everyone else see your light? Yeah. Okay. So, everybody's job today, you're going to hospitality, Francine? Okay. Everybody who knows Francine, this is Francine here, and if you're online and you know Francine, you can put online right now, and we'll hand it to her, what her light is, right? So an experience of her light. Everybody's job here today is to walk up to Francine or someone else you know here and tell them what their light has done for you. Like David showed up in my life a little over a year and a half ago, right? 2 years ago, Easter, 2 years ago, right? Yeah, so a little over 2 years ago. And I remember I met him, he was walking up the stairs here. And he has been so consistent and so true to his word and so loving and caring that it is just truly remarkable, right? And I don't tell him that every day, right? We work together 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes, right? Right? And I don't forget to tell him that. So, Francine, I really think what happens is people don't tell us what they really witness in us. And so we get muddled in what we do wrong. I know I do. Let me talk from my statements. I get muddled in my mistakes, and I think my mistakes, when I'm having a bad day, define me. Right? Anybody else identify with that? I say it all the time, but let me say it again. You are not anything you've ever done. You are so much larger than that. Right? You're not the mistakes you've made. You're the love you bring to the world. That's the truth of who you are. And that goes for rapists and murderers and child molesters and dictators, because we are all expressions of the divine. And dogs and cats, yes. But dogs and cats I can't have this conversation with most of the time. So those moments, we have a question online, but I want to finish with this, is that part of our job is to tell the people around us we interact with what their light is, so it becomes a greater part of their identity. You know? Shouldn't be something that we save for their eulogies, right? It's something we tell them when they're alive. Thank you. So I know Tyler has a question and we have one online. Let me hear the online one first, and then Tyler was getting up, okay?
This question is from Cindy, and she is asking how to get a spiritual connection after the death of a child by suicide.
So full disclosure, Cindy is my sister. And that is my nephew she's talking about. Well, so there's no simple answer. I haven't experienced that, Cindy. I haven't had to bury a child. I had to bury a nephew. And it's a different experience. So what I know and believe and question, right, is that all of us who are our true essence, and when I've been with people when they die to witness, is that they leave their body at the moment of transition, and that all that they are remains in spirit form. It goes back to the wholeness when we talked about with Elizabeth at the beginning, no up and down, no alive, not alive. They're just still with us in spirit. So the only way we can connect with Noah, with those ones of us who have passed away, our animals who have passed away, our children, our parents who have passed away, is spiritually. You think about my grandmother all the time. Both of my parents are still alive. I mean, I think about my grandmother, Audrey, all the time. And in fact, just visited her house in New Orleans on my trip, a house that she taught me how to garden in, that I used to spend lots and lots of time with. I planted 2 trees in front of this house on Constant Street in the Garden District of New Orleans, and those trees are still there and they're still growing. I won't tell you how many years later, but they're still there, and Grandma's spirit is still with me. And I know she's with you too, Cindy. And I know Noah's still with me. So day by day, moment by moment, and we talked about this when I was home, Grandma, Audrey was her name, had lost a son at 5 years old. And my mom tells me that she was never the same after she lost that child. But I had only an experience of Grandma after that, right? And Grandma was loving and caring and wonderful. And Grandma was everything to me, everything. I don't think I'd be the person I am today without my grandma, right? And that spirit that she is exists right here and right now in me. The part of me that still loves to garden. A part of me that loves to cook. She taught me to cook too. Mom did not. Mom's cooking was out of a can. And that is how we're going to remember those who have left, right? That's how we have a spiritual interaction with them. That's how we keep them alive in this spiritual journey. By telling the stories, by making sure they get passed down to the next generation and the next generation, and by talking to them. I talk to Grandma all the time now. All the time. Because she's right here. Right where she needs to be. Tyler. Thanks, Cindy. I love you.
My name is Tyler. Hi. And Ken, my question, I wrote this down, okay. If the unity teachings, I believe, the unity teachings help serve the world or society's needs. So I just wanted to open up the question, what social needs do you think the unity teachings are directly meeting, and how?
Social needs?
Yeah, like...
Or societal needs?
Both, like taking personal responsibility would be my example. The teachings of meditation teach me to take responsibility for me.
Right.
That's needed in our culture, people all blaming, not taking responsibility. They direct unity teaching of meditation and personal reflection, and will teaches the student is an example of something that society needs.
So here's a radical statement, Tyler. I don't think we should exist unless we are doing that. I think that's why churches are struggling. Right? I think that's why people aren't coming to spiritual services as much as they used to, aren't attending the nuns, non-affiliated, no affiliation, the nuns, not Catholic nuns. The nuns are the largest growing group in America, right? People who don't have any church affiliation whatsoever. Because our purpose is to fulfill a need for the people who sit in our pews and watch us online. Our purpose is to bring teachings and practices and wholeness to people's lives. So whether that comes from teachings about taking personal responsibility for our thoughts, about self-examination, and the thing about unity is that it is really, my experience of it anyway, is that it is really confronting in that if I want the world to change, I have to change. I can't just do social work and feed the homeless. I can't just do social work and work with people who are underprivileged or marginalized and not do any of the work I need to do within myself, intellectually, psychologically, and spiritually. Because all those things affect how I see the world. And how I see the world is how it is. If that makes sense. It's not, there's an old saying, unity uses it a lot, but it's not a unity thing. We don't see anything as it is, we see it as we are. We do not see anything as it is, we see it as we are. We look through this lens and we see the world, and so what are you seeing? Are you seeing pain? Are you seeing struggle? Are you seeing oppression? Well, the way to change it is to take out all the struggle and oppression in your own consciousness and to clear the path for other people as you clear the path for yourself. And that's both a simplistic almost, and also really difficult to do. Because it means, Tyler, that we have to sit with people in pain. We have to learn and build the muscle to sit with people who are struggling and not make them wrong for doing that. Not make them wrong, like my sister right now is in pain. She's not wrong for being sad and depressed. Who wouldn't be? What it is an opportunity to be in love. Be in love with our fellow human beings. And I know Paul talked to you about last week that you're fully human and fully divine. Fully human and fully divine. Well, what does that mean? That means that you are spirit come down to earth into this body. When unity talks about you are eternal, what it means is that you pre-existed this body, right? That your body is not the true identity of you. That you existed before this in spirit, and you came into this world, into this body. And in the wholeness of your body is the wholeness of your spirit. But it can't be limited to your body. You are fully human. You have a fully human body. But it is more than that. It is an energy, and I don't know, this is again, question everything. What I don't know is when we go to the other side, are we recognizable? Right? Are we persona recognizable? Or do we go back to the oneness, to the pure bliss of having no boundaries at all and being in communion with everyone all at once? And then we become then here and we're individualized. So that teaching, Tyler, is to be able to go, I don't know what's best for you, but this is what I've learned along the way. This is what I'm wrestling with. And the old, again, a Hebrew scripture, when Jacob wrestles with the angel and gets the new name, right? I will not release you until I get my new name. And his new name was Israel, right? That struggle, that wrestling with the why are we here? What's our purpose as an organization? As Unity San Francisco, what's our purpose? Well, I believe my purpose is to see the divine in you, and you, Francine, and you, John, and see the divine in you, and you, Melissa, and Rosie, and all of you, and elevate that conversation to the highest possible level. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do. So that's the mission of this community. And when we fulfill that mission, as we fulfill that mission, more and more people will resonate with us, join us, come to us, and help us do that mission. It will never end. Do you hear that? It will never end because we're in this world, east of Eden, and we need to recognize that we are learning the lessons in this human form that we can't learn in spirit. So if we go back, if I'm correct, and I hope I am, but I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be surprised and pleasantly surprised on the other side one day. In this body, I appear as a cisgendered gay white man, right? That's who I am. And that this society tells me I'm different from people of color, I'm different from women, I'm different from straight men, I'm different from this and that, and and all that noise. And my journey in this life is to realize that that's a lie. That is a lie of the human mind, not the truth of my divine spirit. That we're all one is the truth. And that teaching, I think, is the most important thing we could do, because once we identified with that principle and that teaching and the understanding, we wouldn't have an issue with homelessness. We wouldn't have an issue with racism. We wouldn't have an issue with classism and privilege, because we'd understand that there's no difference between us. We'd understand that everything we do to each other, we do to ourselves. And that would shift everything. So that's the mission, the purpose of this organization. And as we fulfill that purpose and live into it, it will grow and thrive. And, easy said, really hard to do. So we are out of time. I just looked at the clock. I can spin a tale, can't I? We are out of time. So if you have those questions, I will answer them after. And I will, if they save the ones online, if there's the ones online I didn't get to, I'll write you answers. If the music team comes back up, let's take that to our time of meditation.